I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the abduction of Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy. Who would take an 84-year-old widow from her home in the middle of the night? Here's the story. When 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie didn't show up for church on Sunday morning, her family's concern turned into a full-blown criminal investigation. The mother of Today's Show host, Savannah Guthrie, was last seen around 9:45 p.m. Saturday at her home in the Catalina foothills north of Tucson, Arizona, and was later reported missing after relatives found no trace of her inside. Investigators quickly declared her residence a crime scene, saying evidence indicated she did not leave voluntarily and was likely taken against her will, possibly from her bed in the middle of the night. Forensics teams found blood matching Nancy's DNA on her front porch. Security cameras and her pacemaker app were disabled around the time she vanished. And at least one ransom note with specific details has been examined by police. The FBI has joined the search and is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to her safe return or an arrest. But as of now, no suspects or persons of interest have been publicly identified. Savannah and her siblings have made emotional public pleas for their mother's safe return, emphasizing her fragile health and urgent need for daily medication. This is the true crime mystery that everyone is talking about, and everyone's trying to figure out. You go online, you see it, everyone's got a theory on, oh, could be this, could be that. But what we're hearing from law enforcement is they don't have any suspects yet. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who is live at the Pima County Sheriff's Department headquarters. Cody, what's the latest from the family tonight?
Well, yeah, Vinnie, I've been to both the crime scene at Nancy Guthrie's house and the home of her daughter, Annie, which is only about 10 minutes away. No real movement at either. Now, of course, when I was at both locations, you saw cars in the driveway of each home. Unclear if those cars belonged to who lived inside each of those homes or if it was investigative personnel. We know the investigation is continuing to play itself out, and we know the home of Nancy Guthrie has been turned back over to the family, even though investigative work is still being done at that scene, Vinnie. But of course, we have all seen that emotional video that Savannah Guthrie posted alongside her siblings to her Instagram page, pleading for her mother to come home. Let's take a look at a portion of that video now.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see. Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again.
And Vinnie, during a recent press conference, the sheriff spoke on who potential suspects could be and how no one has been ruled out just yet. Take a listen.
Nobody's eliminated, but we just really don't have enough to say, this is our suspect, this is our guy, we know, or our gal. We just don't know that. And it's really kind of reckless to report that someone is a suspect when they could very well be a victim. It just, I bring to you, to the media, I plead with you to be careful of what it is we put out there, because we don't have anybody here listed as a suspect.
No, Vinnie, of course we saw those headlines swirling around social media pointing towards Nancy's son-in-law, Tommaso, who's married to her daughter, Annie, as a, quote, prime suspect. But the sheriff doubled down again on the fact that they have not identified a suspect or a person or persons of interest.
All right, Cody Thomas is going to stick with us throughout the hour. This brings us to the first question in our investigation. I think it's an important one at this stage of the investigation, which is, what is the relationship between law enforcement and the family? Because on the one hand, no one has been eliminated, which would include potentially family members, yet they are also the victims, as the sheriff was talking about. So how does that relationship navigated at this stage of everything? Joining me, missing persons private investigator, search and rescue pilot, and ground search technician Steve Fisher is with us, and retired police detective, forensic educator, Dr. Mike McCutcheon. Dr. Mike McCutcheon, I want to begin with you from that law enforcement perspective. How do you navigate that relationship in terms of what you tell them, what you don't tell them, how you deal with them if, in fact, no one has been eliminated, no one's been so-called cleared?
Well, it's a good question, because the relationship that they're going to have with law enforcement right now is going to be very close. When they made their video, I'm sure that they had some interaction with the police on what they should and shouldn't say, because it's still an active investigation, and they don't want the family inadvertently to release any information that they don't want released. So there's going to be a victim advocate of some sort that is going to work with the family, that is going to be the liaison with the police while they're working the investigation. If it comes out that a family member or someone that they know is a suspect, they certainly wouldn't share that there with the family. They're going to follow the information. They're going to follow the what the data shows them and what the evidence shows them. And if they come up that it's going to be someone that they know, or if it's a family member, they will reveal that at some point. But they wouldn't tip their hat through the investigation until they had something concrete. Just like you said, you're not going to want to throw out those accusations early on if you don't have anything to substantiate it. So right now, I think the relationship would be very close, but they're not going to be sharing information if they thought it was a family member at this point.
Steve, from all your experience, what are your thoughts here about how that relationship works between the family and law enforcement in a case where no one has been eliminated as a suspect?
Yeah, it's a super tricky situation, and I agree with everything that the other guest said. Here we got a situation where there's possibly, ransom, and in that case, you got, family members are probably going to want to get this thing moving as quick as possible, get that conversation started, and they may even want to pay it. But you're going to have investigators that certainly would like to open that dialogue if there's somebody there to speak with, but are going to want to also slow down the situation at that point, control it as much as they can, rein and have that tactical advantage. And they really have separate agendas then, where the family really is going to be pushing to get her back right now. I don't care what it takes versus, law enforcement. Listen, whatever the relationship is, they both need each other greatly right now until there's more clarity on if this is a ransom or if there's some other type of suspect.
Yeah, and Dr. Mike McCutcheon, Steve brings up a great point, which is the outcomes for each side. Law enforcement wants, obviously, her returned safely, if possible. They also want to catch the people responsible. They want to prosecute the people responsible. And as a family member, I'm sure they want that, but for them, it's really just about one thing, getting her home safely. Do you see any sort of a a conflict that could occur between those two ultimate goals?
I think it's possible, but it's not quite like in the movie where the law enforcement is going to want her to get back just as much as the family does. That is our goal as law enforcement, is to bring her home. Now, yes, we want to find perpetrators and charge them with a crime, but we wouldn't sacrifice her safety to return her in order to find a suspect. So this is where the investigators have to be clever, and they have to be able to navigate both. They want her safe return. If they're going to pay a ransom, they're going to have some type of system to make sure they're not just leaving this money for somebody to get and then that's it. There's going to be a lot of coordination if there's an exchange, and then the police are going to try to still catch who's responsible while returning her. So I don't think it's one or the other. It's the wrong way to think about it. We can have both things true at the same time. We want her safe return, and we want to have the prosecution. You're not going to sacrifice one for the other.
Steve Fisher, do you think it's possible for investigators to track her down before this so-called Monday deadline, if in fact this ransom note is legitimate and they're going to carry out the threats that were in that note?
Yeah, I do think there's a good chance that, the FBI, cell team that's in there they're fantastic, doesn't, in this type of situation, there's a very good chance that, somebody, went by that house in the days before, seeing, and scoped it out, and they can tell from that cell tower dump that they'll get, if those phones were new to that area, if they had traversed in that area before, or if they just started in the last few days, and they'll probably be able to narrow down a bucket of, IMEI, numbers that they can, look into. They might be able to, get somebody, get a lead from that. But they've got the best of the best in there right now, working digital forensics and everything for sure.
Yeah, they do. And there's a bright, bright spotlight on the investigation, which I think helps. I mean, it brings more resources and is a motivating factor. Not that they're always motivated, but they don't always have the resources to do it. Steve Fisher, always great to see you. Thanks so much. Dr. Mike McCutcheon's going to stick around for a moment. Coming up next, is there any way this wasn't targeted?
We love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you.
Disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
Here on the ground in Tucson, there have been thousands of leads.
Everyone is looking for you, Mommy.
Where is Nancy Guthrie? A Court TV and Scripps News special report. Friday night at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
A deadly school shooting.
I just started hearing gunshots. Now, the father of the alleged shooter
is on trial.
Mr. Gray knowingly allowing his son to possess a weapon.
The Gave My Son a Gun murder trial next week on Court TV.
Australians copy fuel to be referenced missing person under PTSD at 5820-5020, approximate Escalante. Copy reference Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build, Pineapple blue, ring after 2200 hours as of yesterday. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues. And then we feel 618.
The original dispatch audio that went out early on Sunday, just after noon, after the 911 call, was made by the family from the home of their mom, Nancy Guthrie. Let's go back to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. He's at the Pima County Sheriff's Department tonight. What is it like, right? I've seen a lot of these daytime photos, but what's it like in that neighborhood at night, Cody?
Well, Vinny, the short answer is that it's dark, and it's really dark and remote. And I went out there at night to get a better feel of what it might have looked like that night that Nancy Guthrie went missing. Take a look at this. Here now in the Catalina foothills area of Tucson, Arizona, the home you're looking at now belongs to missing 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. And of course, you see the home is lit up. We see some people in the driveway. Unclear who those people are, but we do know there's been a strong investigative presence out here since Sunday afternoon, since Nancy Guthrie was reported missing. Now, I'll step out of frame here. You can see there's some activity going on here behind me. There's a good media presence here. It's well lit out here in front of this house. But the question is, how dark would it have been the night that Nancy Guthrie was taken? What would it have looked like out here in this remote neighborhood that has no streetlights that could be seen driving up to the house? What would it have looked like that night? Now, you're still looking in the direction of Nancy Guthrie's house, except now we've walked 20 to 25 yards in the opposite direction of the media presence, the opposite direction of the media lights, to really give you a feel of how dark it could get out here on this remote road. Now, of course, we have our own light set up, but as I continue walking in this direction, you can see it gets darker and darker and darker until you see absolutely nothing, not a thing. Now, one thing I can tell you about being out here on this remote road is that I have seen no street lights, no street cameras. Unclear if any of these homes around the area have Ring cameras on them. Even if they did, and even if there were street cameras, I imagine it'd be super hard to pick anything up out here in the dark hours of the night. And Vinnie, the video you're looking at on your screen now is what it would have looked like driving up to Nancy's house in the Catalina foothills at night. It's a video I took when I was driving up there. And you can see, Vinnie, even with my headlights on, you can see pretty much what's directly in front of me, but peripherally, you can see how dark that it gets. You know, this is off one of the main roads. It's not a typical subdivision. The houses are not juxtaposed like a normal neighborhood that you would see. You can't really see the fronts of any of those houses, just a really, really dark area, Vinnie, at night.
Yeah. It's darker than I thought it was. When you stepped off camera away from the lights, we saw absolutely nothing, Cody. All right, Cody's going to stick around. That brings us to the next question in our investigation. You've got this very specific neighborhood that is not, you know, a typical neighborhood. You've got these big plots, acre of land. Is there any way this wasn't targeted, that the person going there didn't know exactly where they were going and exactly whose home they were going to? Let's bring in our guest. Joining me, former law enforcement and private investigator for over 40 years, Vinnie Parco is with us, and still with me, retired detective Dr. Mike McCutcheon. All right, Vinnie, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. From your perspective, is there any way that this was not specifically targeted, that whoever went in that home and abducted Nancy Guthrie didn't know who they were taking?
No, that was targeted. They're definitely targeted. What I believe is that somebody, either a caretaker or somebody close to the family, might have given some information to perpetrators. And remember, most crimes are crimes of opportunity. They know that there's a very hard place to get caught because it's dark, there's no people around, there's no stores or any place where there's cameras. What I believe is that a caretaker or somebody close to the family might have said something or might have contributed information to somebody who's a bad person. It's very simple. And they know that the person is alone. They know that the area is very easy to get a person out of there without being seen. Now, the other thing that I worry about, remember, I was a forensic examiner. I worked for the State Board of Medicine. This woman is 84 years old. She's probably been traumatized by this whole thing. She's got her pacemaker is not connected. She doesn't have. I don't think she has a medication. So I really feel bad that I got a bad feeling about this. I really do, and I really believe that someone was opportunistic. They know that she's related to a celebrity who has a lot of money, who makes good money, and this is a person that can get ransom from. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, Dr. Mike, I can see that scenario. I think I've seen that movie, right? Where someone who is in there comes out and says, "You won't believe whose house I was at today." Right? Oh yeah, her daughter is like on, you know, top of the food chain in news reporting. Like, it doesn't get any higher than where Savannah Guthrie is. And I could see someone like that putting two and two together. What are your thoughts about whether or not this was targeted, that whoever did this knew exactly whose house it was and knew the situation there?
They definitely knew exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. There's no way that they didn't know that what they were doing, and there's a few reasons why. For a random attack, if they just randomly picked a house to go commit a crime, commit a burglary, if they were committing some type of a murder or rape or something like that, then that would be random and they would leave the person there. There'd be no reason to take a person with them because that's too high risk. Moving a person is high risk. So they had to go there with the intent that they are going to remove her for ransom. That takes planning. Now we know that the evidence that they haven't shared all the evidence that they've recovered, but so far they haven't come out with anything that would focus the attention to a specific person. That to me, again, means that there's planning. It wasn't a crime of passion where somebody's randomly going by, commits a crime, and they don't have, I'll say, proper gear to not get caught. They were clearly took precautions to make sure that they didn't get caught. They knew where the camera was to disarm the camera before they went in. So they definitely had knowledge. There was some pre-planning here. This was definitely not something that a random person just walked in and said, hey, you know what? I think I recognize you, and now I'm going to ask for a ransom. Particularly in a ransom case like this, you have to know that the victims have the ability to pay a ransom. So there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this was something that was pre-planned. There's no way that it was just a crime of passion or something similar.
All right, we have about a minute left, Vinnie. Is it possible for one person to pull this off, or are we looking for more than one?
No, it has to be a group, at least 2 or 3 people. Someone driving the car, someone who knows about the area, knows how knows how she operates, how she compute, whatever she does. By the way, I think that the police, that they are doing a great job. They did everything that they're supposed to do on a case like this. They did a textbook thing. I believe that some caretaker or somebody that's close to the family said to somebody, hey, I got an opportunity for you to make money. And that's what they're doing.
All
that's
about the
how
money.
I think it's
All about the money. Hey, Vinnie Parker, great to catch up with you. Great to see you again. Dr. Mike McCutcheon, always a pleasure. Still to come, is this ransom note legitimate? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, a case with a missing 84-year-old woman, blood stains outside the house, and a mysterious ransom note. Here's the story. In the quiet Catalina foothills community outside of Tucson, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has sharply jolted friends, family, and investigators alike. The 84-year-old mother of Today's Show anchor Savannah Guthrie was reported missing on February 1st after she didn't arrive at a planned Sunday church service, and relatives found her home in unusual disarray. The Pima County Sheriff said authorities believe Nancy was abducted from her home against her will, noting that she has limited mobility, requires daily medication, and would not have walked away on her own. Blood matching her DNA was discovered on the front steps, and investigators are analyzing possible ransom notes that reference specific details about her and her home, even as the legitimacy of those notes remains unconfirmed. Despite extensive efforts by local law enforcement and the FBI, including reviewing surveillance footage, license plate readers, and digital data, no suspect has been identified, and Nancy's whereabouts remain unknown. Savannah and her family, supported by national attention and a growing reward, continue to plead for her safe return. All right, let's go right out to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who is live tonight at the Pima County Sheriff's Department headquarters. All right, Cody, what do we know about the ransom note, and are investigators taking it seriously?
Well, yeah, Vinny, they are taking it very seriously, and this is actually where the FBI and their myriad resources step in to help with this. Now, they say multiple ransom notes are floating around out here throughout social media, being sent to local news outlets as well as national news outlets. But in a press conference, they gave an update on the ransom note situation. Take a listen to this.
There have been, as far as we know, I think 3 ransom notes so far, 1 arrest. Are they all different? Or do you think there's different authors behind all of them? Or...
So the one that went to the media is the one we are currently investigating and working on. The imposter that I talked about, where an arrest was made early this morning, that there will be more information. We believe there's no evidence to connect this to Nancy's case. It was someone that was trying to profit from it, a total imposter.
So you heard it there, Vinny. They did arrest an imposter trying to take advantage of the Guthrie family's pain right now, but no relation to the official ransom note that they are really focusing on. Now, Vinny, also, Savannah Guthrie and her brother Cameron have posted videos online trying to get contact with the possible kidnapper or kidnappers in a plea to get their mother home. Take a listen to both of them.
We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
And Vinny, during a recent press conference, I asked the FBI special agent in charge, if a family chooses or wants to cooperate with a possible kidnapper or kidnappers, what are the next steps to take? Here's what the FBI special agent in charge said.
We have an expertise when it comes to kidnappings, and when families want advice, consultation, expertise, we will provide that. But the ultimate decisions on what they say and how they put that out rests with the family itself.
Now, Vinny, during that same press conference, the FBI also announced a $50,000 reward for anybody with information that may lead to an arrest in this case.
All right, thanks so much, Cody. Let's get to the next question in our investigation. It's about that note. Is this ransom note legitimate? Remember, it's sent to Scripps News Group. It is sent to another local news outlet. It is sent apparently to TMZ as well, not sent to the family. Joining me, retired FBI Special Agent, Professor of Practice at the University of New Haven, Kenneth Gray, and criminologist and investigative profiler, Dr. Casey Jordan. Thank you both. Kenneth Gray, I just want to go to you first on this FBI expertise, okay? Is part of that expertise trying to figure out if this is legitimate? And if so, how do they do it? And do you think, because at this point they're not discounting it, that it may very well be legit?
Sure. So the family is asking for a sign of life to show that Nancy Guthrie is still alive. But as far as communication goes here, so far all we've seen is the one communication going to the 3 news agencies. And then they broadcast their response back. But that does not set up a two-way communication. They really need to have some way to be able to get directly in contact with the kidnappers, to be able to exchange the money and bitcoins for the location of their mother after they provide sign of life proof that she is still alive. This could be legitimate, but the only thing they're hanging their hat on to make this legitimate is information in there that there was a damaged floodlight on her property, that she left behind her Apple Watch, and also something to do with the dollar amount. They didn't put out the details of the communication itself, except for in generalities and these 3 pieces of information.
All right, Dr. Casey Jordan, what are your thoughts here in taking a look at everything? Does it sound like this ransom note is legit and this is, whoever's behind the note is behind the abduction, or should we be looking at a wider scope here?
I agree with everything Kenneth said. I mean, the bottom line is that this is a very malleable, ongoing situation. So at first we think it's legit because there are some things that they mention in there that maybe kidnappers would specifically know, but they're not ultra specific. And you look for that. And it's until we get proof of life. Can they describe the birthmark on the back of her neck? Can they inscribe the inscription on the inside of her ring? Something like that. I'm just making this up, but something so micro-specific that you know that they have her in front of them. And we haven't received anything like that. Now, as time goes on and we have these appeals from Savannah last night and from her brother again today, and we received no further communication, that may suggest, and nobody wants to really go there, that the kidnappers don't have anything to negotiate with at this point. Let's put it that way. And that might change everything. If they can't provide proof of life and they don't know what to do next, they just may ride off into the sunset and we never hear from them again and get no closure on this case. At this point, so in other words, the ransom demand could be legit, but things could have gone haywire. Alternatively, it's legit and they are in the process of figuring out a communication channel. They may have been bright enough to be able to, abduct her without a trace, but not bright enough to figure out how they're going to communicate the details of getting that crypto.
Yeah, to me, that's I don't understand in 2026 how you could expect to do that unless you are a super master of, of this digital world that we live in. Kenneth, do you think is it a possibility that ransom could be paid and she could be returned and these people could get away with it, right? That they would be comfortable enough to hand her back, get the money, and be done?
That's a possibility. I mean, that's always a possibility. But there are also other possibilities such that they don't have her and they're trying to just take advantage of the situation with information that they have and hoping to cash in on this situation. Another possibility is that she is no longer alive and that they are trying to cash in on the situation. Or this may be a false flag, totally a false flag to begin with, and that they never had her.
Are you surprised, Casey, that we're here now? This is 5 days later, and we're still not. It's not precise if this is a kidnapping for ransom or something completely different.
Or was it a vendetta against Savannah from somebody she's never met who obsessed about her or glommed onto her, or she said something 15 years ago on the Today Show that they found offensive, and seeing her in tears last night was all the satisfaction they wanted? We don't know, but we are moving away from any notion that this is just an unhinged, random home invasion who just got into the house and then decided to take an 84-year-old lady. The police have been really cagey on whether it's targeted or not. I think that they absolutely believe it's targeted at this point. But yeah, 5 days in, that's not good. That's not good at all. And I don't think that there have been many missteps per se, but everyone's like, well, why did it take a while for them to contact, Scripps and all the news agencies? For all we know, they did try to contact the family, but it didn't get through to them. All right. How many hundreds of thousands of tips have come in that were not taken seriously? So what happens next will determine. But I'd say if we go a few more days past the so-called Monday deadline, we knew we had some kind of deadline today at 5 o'clock. We don't know what that meant. But after Monday, if we don't hear from them at all, that's not a good sign. It either proves that it was always a hoax or that whoever sent that doesn't have her alive anymore and can't continue with negotiations.
Yeah. Is there any way, Kenneth, communications were sent to the media, so are they trying to track that down, trying to track down the source of that? Is that going to be difficult for the FBI to do?
I'm sure they're trying to do that at this point, tracking down every electronic communication channel possible to see whether or not they can find who originated that. But, if you go up on the dark web, you can set up an anonymous email account and send it through there, and that's very hard to track. And so, you know, I'm sure that channel is being pursued, but I'd like to point out that it's difficult to hold a person for any length of time, especially if they're either a child or an elderly person with health issues. And so every day that goes by makes it harder and harder for them to operate. And so I think we have another deadline here that is being approached, just simply with the difficulty in keeping her in this situation.
Absolutely. All right, our guests are staying with us. Coming up next, what was happening at the house during those 41 minutes?
We will not rest. Your children will not rest.
Coming soon to Court TV.
The Microsoft executive gunned down.
Now his ex and her new husband are charged with his murder.
Mountains of evidence. 17-year-old accused of murdering her mother and her stepfather.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
Why do you have something against me?
Suzanne Morphew vanished without a trace.
Her husband, Barry, has been charged with her murder.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon, only on Court TV.
Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you.
Powerful words from Savannah Guthrie. As that family waits and waits, can't imagine the absolute angst and torture that that family is going through. And then their mom, what is she going through here on day 5? Let's get back to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, live at the Pima County Sheriff Department headquarters. All right, Cody, what do we know about what time in this timeline that Nancy Guthrie was abducted?
Well, yeah, Vinnie, the sheriff went into detail in explaining what they know about the timeline up to this point, from the last time Nancy Guthrie was seen alive by her family to when she was reported missing to the authorities. And they also explained that they believe Nancy Guthrie was home alone the night that this all went down. Now, Vinnie, also, they described this 41-minute period of time during which she was seemingly abducted. And this period of time, it starts with her doorbell camera getting disconnected, and it ends with her pacemaker app disconnecting from her phone. And then there's a little twist in the middle of all that as well. Vinnie, take a listen to this.
This is a timeline that we have been able to develop with some of the things that we've had processed. Various pieces of electronics that we've gathered. Sunday morning, early morning at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera disconnects. At 2:12 a.m., software detects a person on a camera, but there's no video available. They had no subscription, and therefore it would rewrite itself, it just kind of loops, right, and covers up. That's what our analysis teams have told us. We're not done with that. We'll do all we can, but that's what it says. So that detects a person on camera. Could that be an animal? I imagine that's possible. We don't know that. We just have no video. But we're not giving up on that. 2:28, Nancy's pacemaker app shows that it was a disconnect from the phone.
When you say the doorbell camera was disconnected, do you believe that that camera was taken?
We do not have it in our possession. We've not located it.
So again, Vinnie, they don't have any actual video footage of a person on that property, but they are investigating that doorbell camera footage, whatever they can extract from the doorbell camera. Now, Vinnie, when they say her pacemaker app disconnected from her phone, we know that her phone was left at the house. Police are in possession of that phone, but that could also suggest that in that 41-minute period of time there, that could suggest she was being abducted toward the end of that window of time.
Absolutely. You know, if the connection is probably like my glucometer. It does the same thing. If you're out of a certain range with your phone, it's going to disconnect. Cody Thomas, great work tonight. Thanks so much. Brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour, which is, what was happening at the house during those 41 minutes? Still with me, Retired FBI Special Agent Kenneth Gray and criminologist and investigative profiler Dr. Casey Jordan. Dr. Casey Jordan, 41 minutes. What's going on at that house?
Well, the family indicated when they got there on Sunday morning that they could tell something bad had happened. The place was very disheveled. And then, of course, there was signs of a forced entry. So in that amount of time, it would have been probably just calming her down, because as your previous guests have pointed out, taking elderly people and young children is a huge liability. You don't want screaming. You don't want to have to carry them. You want them to walk as far as they can on their own. And the bottom line is it was probably a lot of false reassurances. Everything is going to be fine. But, what bothers me the most is that in those 40 minutes, they could have been trying to figure out how to take her with that pacemaker, which I'm sure if she was conscious, she would have alerted them about. They want her to have the pacemaker and the Apple Watch together, but taking the Apple Watch means that there will be a locator on there. I mean, it's going to be almost impossible unless you know how to turn that off. And they made a decision, I think, to leave the Apple Watch behind. And that could have caused, health-related issues down the road that they had not anticipated. Did they take any medication with them? Did they allow her to get dressed? Were they concerned for her safety? I think that there are always so many things they don't anticipate, the so-called X factor, things that they think the best laid plan and then things go awry. I think something was going awry in those 40 minutes. It was not a quick in and out. And that is perhaps why we are not hearing from them now.
Kenneth Gray, what are your thoughts about those 41 minutes?
Well, the person or persons who did this may be familiar with the property, may be familiar with the outside of the building, but they may not be familiar with the inside of the building. They may not know whether there are alarms inside the building. They may not know whether someone else is staying there in addition to Nancy. And so they may be slowly creeping through the building, through her house, trying to determine if there are alarms, trying to determine if anyone else is in the house. And then they wake her up and have to get her out of the house. She may not have been cooperative with them. There's blood on there that you just see in that scene at the door. We don't know if there's blood on the inside of the house or not. She may not have been cooperative with them, and consequently, it may have taken time to get her up, get her dressed, get her out of the house, and get anything they needed to bring with her, if they brought anything with her, to get her out of there. It takes time. It's not like grabbing up a kid and running out the door. This would take time to do so, and especially doing so if you're not really familiar with the property, if you're not really familiar with the inside of that house.
Kenneth Gray and Dr. Casey Jordan, so great to have your expertise. I hope you'll come back as we continue to cover this story. This is a brutal situation for Nancy's family. In the spotlight with their mom missing, while the nation wonders who did it and why did they do it. And everyone is hoping for Nancy's return, but understanding as each day passes, it becomes less and less likely. At this point, all they can hope, and we can hope for, is that the kidnappers come to their senses, end this torture, and let Nancy return home. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation